Okay.
John,
Alright.
go.
My name is Jonathan Keeling. I started learning how to play. Oh my god, it's so weird. The second time now. I started playing. I started playing Magic. I started learning how to play Magic right around when Dissension came out. Um, and I mean, before that, I've been mostly into Yu-Gi-Oh, and I even was mostly at the time, but that's when I learned how to play. And my first deck was this really, in retrospect, actually had some really good cards in it, but was also really bad black hand control deck. But I had like 4 Hymnotorox and 3 Mind Twist in it, so that was good. Um, right? So and then I mean, I didn't play a whole bunch after that. I played a lot during Time Spiral. That's when I probably played Standard the most and played a lot. And then I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh competitively, so it kind of, I ended up just Magic kind of fell by the wayside. And then I picked it up again when I started college around 2009. So I've been playing pretty heavily since then. Not a whole lot competitively, but casually and specifically Commander. I mean, think I have like 12 Commander decks now or something like that. Um, and recently I've been playing Tiny Leaders a lot, and I'm really enjoying that. Um, but yeah. Also, at some point, I'll have to put like my Twitter and other information.
Yeah, I didn't bother with that for now. We'll have it for
Yeah.
Oh,
next
okay.
week.
Okay, cool. All right, then. Well, then that's me. And you can't
Right.
see me, but jazz hands.
Make
Yeah.
sure they know about
Um,
jazz hands.
but yeah. So Jameson, I guess you're next.
All right. Well, I am Jameson. I started playing. Oh god, with my best friend Tyler back when I was like 12 or 13, I think. I don't know. All I know is that I had a sweet Hedron Crab deck, and it was like my favorite deck of all
Hedron.
time.
That's why you bought that foil Hedron crab.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Hedron Crab is basically my favorite card of all time because of that. That's what really got me into Magic.
Hedron Crab is pretty
It
fantastic.
is really
It
good. Yeah.
is.
I had a really badass landfall deck, and Hedron Crab was
See, he knows.
tops.
And so after that, I didn't play for a couple years, and then I got really into it like right around when Gatecrash came out, when I went to my first FNM. And since then, I've played a lot of competitive events like Star Cities. I've played a couple states. I've played IQs,
Played a
PTQs, whatever.
couple states.
He played.
He played a couple states.
Didn't
He
do much.
won
It
them.
didn't amount to much. He won both of them.
Hello, PV Jet.
Just played.
Well, we shouldn't say he won both. There was a third he played in. It was modern.
Yes.
He did terrible.
Yes, I didn't do off. Okay, I did pretty bad, but yeah, not gonna lie, did pretty bad. But so
Played
as
in
for
a couple
Commander,
states.
Commander wise, I play actually a lot of Commander just with my friends though. I actually don't have my own deck yet, but I've played a lot of Commander. I've played normally I play blue green janky combo decks. Not even gonna lie, but they're just a blast, and that's pretty much my general Magic experience.
Okay, and I guess since I forced them to go first, I probably should have been thinking about what the hell to say now. Uh, but I guess it's my turn. As you can see, my name is Alex Morris. I started playing. I learned how to play Magic back in somewhere in Onslaught block, which, I mean, at the time I would have been 7, 8, something like that, if I can remember when Onslaught came out. But I didn't actually really start actively playing until the original Ravnica block. So around the same time as John, I started playing a couple sets earlier than him. I started playing in Ravnica, and he started in Dissension. But and then I mean, it was mostly just playing standard FNMs. For those of you that are watching that don't know this, my dad owns a store in Bay City called the Stadium, Bay City, Michigan, called the Stadium. I currently am employed there. You know, it's we have arguably the largest selection of singles for Magic in mid-Michigan. We've hosted multiple Star City Games state championships. So for me, Magic, even when I wasn't playing it for a number of years, at least not actively, Magic has always been kind of important for me. it's the reason I have, this house.
He's
But
awesome. Oh, never mind. Go on. Sorry, go on. Do you think?
but yeah, so I started to play Commander around when. Oh God, when would that have been? I guess I started Commander around Scars of Mirrodin-ish. My first Commander deck was Experiment Crash, which was super fun. Which I'll get into what I'm playing now a bit later into this episode. But I've mostly been playing Commander since then. I would love to be able to play more competitive, but because I run the tournaments, I don't really get to play in them. Also, like John, though, I have been playing in Tiny Leaders, which is just a blast. But yeah, that's where I'm at in Magic. So now that we've kind of introduced ourselves, we're going to move to the main topic of discussion for this episode, which is styles and methodologies of deck building. I had a list. There's the list. The major styles that we came up with, for at least for Commander, are you could build your deck around combo. There's themes, which can consist of building around a combo or a certain mechanic or just a flavor theme. You can be a super spiky player and just build it to win. Don't even care if there's any rhyme or reason to it as long as it wins. Or there's something that, and this is probably what we'll talk about the most, is the 75% rule, which is the idea of Commander being a multiplayer format and kind of a more social experience of Magic. Building your deck to 75% of the power that it could potentially have. Because it makes games, in theory, more interesting. So yeah, themes. John, I know you're a sucker for themes. Do you want to take the floor for a little bit?
Yeah, I can. I mean, so I guess one of the things that mainly drew me to Commander, what I really love, I'm a huge sucker for like lore. Like, I really love stories, and I mean that's probably my attraction. Like when I write or read, it tends to be like a high fantasy or like a high science fiction setting because I really like things that like allow for there to be like a deep understanding of a world. Like I like that idea. And so I guess I feel like I apply that to my decks because a lot of times it'll be like I'll come up with an idea I'm like, oh, that seems cool, like that's a cool mechanic. Or I'll just see like I'll see like a legendary creature and I'll think, oh, that character seems interesting. Like what can I draw about that character from the card? And then from there, it's like, oh well, I mean, in a battle with these commanders with their, I mean, the decks, I guess in theory could be their armies. How would they fight? Like, what would their army consist of? What would that character use? Like,
Sidisi
would have a way different way of approaching combat than, say, Niv Mizzet would in a fight. Like, I mean, it would be two different things. It'd be completely different. And so that's how I tend to approach deck building for my decks, is that I try to make a deck that fits the flavor of the person who's controlling it. Because, I mean, like, I don't think that you would see Sidisi in a deck filled with elves. You know, it doesn't seem like her thing. So for me, theme is important in that regard. I also feel like it makes decks interesting for me because I like seeing somebody I like playing against decks that have a high theme to them because it's always interesting to see what you can do. And I found you can do a lot of powerful things while maintaining a theme. It also helps giving you focus of the deck, like as far as like what you want to do. Because with Commander, the fact that you can use so many cards can often be underwhelming, especially when you're starting off. And having like a theme, like having a way to limit yourself in a way, can help narrow it down so that you can, you know, choose the cards you want to use and then work from there.
Because obviously there's a huge card pool to work with in this format. And like the idea of a lot of people that haven't built many Commander decks, they think like, oh, I mean, yeah, there's access to like everything, and you only need one of each card, so it's not like you're narrowing it down to play sets and stuff. So it's like, how hard could it be to cut stuff? But it's like I swear it's harder than
super
competitive.
hard. In fact, we have sometimes we get together to play Magic. The first 40 minutes to an hour will be just helping somebody cut 4 cards from a deck.
Yeah.
Like between like 5 of us, we'll just all be like, "You can cut that." And I'm like, "No."
They're like, no, but that works with this. And,
Yes,
yeah.
and then like 3
Yeah.
people like, "You can't do that. Can't do it."
Which the idea of sorry, finish your thought.
No, I was gonna say, which is, I mean, again, part of what drew me to Commander is I love deck building. I love building new decks. I love taking new ideas and bringing them into fruition. It's always fun for me.
Right, and then the idea of things being difficult to cut because a lot of times they interact so well with other things that are already in the deck is kind of I guess another word for the mechanic theme that I listed as more so just synergy. People like to synergize with a specific thing, I briefly mentioned Sidisi, and John used Sidisi in his example about armies fighting differently. Like John's got a Sidisi deck that is basically, Commander Dredge, and actually, a better example of this actually is his Marchesa. His Marchesa deck is stupid, and 2, there's lots of putting counters on things even without attacking from Marchesa's trigger, so then he can get the delayed trigger if they die, regardless of whether or not they attack the player with the highest life total from Dethrone. And then also here, for those of you that don't know what Marchesa does, I'm gonna pull her up.
Pull it up
here.
for them. That's good. Yeah, I mean,
oh my! I shouldn't put that there.
That deck.
I need to minimize that.
What?
Sorry, I screwed something up in layering so that stuff that wasn't supposed to be there was there.
Okay.
It's like, I know for me personally, when I typically approach Commander, I'm more of the combo guy, because I just like doing silly things that make the game unplayable for everyone else. And it's a blast.
Speaking of which, we found a foil Karavik, which I put on hold for Nate, John.
Of course you did, but I bet it looks really pretty though.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so Marchesa, she's a 3/3 for 4 with Dethrone, which whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Other creatures you control have Dethrone, and if that's not good enough, she also, whenever a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, a creature you control, sorry, with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So
it's important to note that this applies to herself.
Yes. And also
because the trigger happens at the act of her being sent to the graveyard, so she's technically still in play.
and then so he's got all sorts of free sack outlets to basically just get free value. He can steal your stuff, attack you with it if you're on the throne, and then sacrifice it, and then keep your dude. Just stupid shit like that.
Yeah. And I think another thing about that deck, and I think this goes to going about like as far as one of the things I love about Commander, and I think Alex has.
Oh, I think we might be losing John.
Talk about this on our list of things to discuss.
Oh no, now he's good. You were cutting out. You're good now.
Yeah, you're good now.
Is that I love that you can find really old cards and do really weird things with them. Like the MVP of my deck is a card called Unspeakable Symbol, which is by all accounts
bad card.
Really, really bad. It's 1 and 2 black. It's an enchantment, and the ability is pay 3 life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Now, that is awful. Except in this deck, it makes it so as long as I have life, nothing I have actually dies. And it's the
And
best thing.
it keeps him off the throne because he has a free way of paying life with benefit, so he can keep attacking other people.
It's really the best thing.
Also, quick side note, I didn't realize that I needed a third monitor until I started trying to move shit around for this podcast. Holy crap, I want a third monitor.
Got that Trips monitor set up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I need a bigger desk, though. That's the big issue.
Machissa is indeed nuts with Undying.
Like, I could probably find a monitor in the
Also
basement.
Also Micaeus.
Oh, and Micaeus, yeah.
And Triskelion, because Triskelion.
Oh my god, yeah. Triskelion basically just becomes win.
Yeah, just machine gun dudes.
But yeah, so as far as like you said, like thematically, like that was a deck that I built where I saw the mechanic and I thought, oh, that's really cool. I like the dethrone. I want to make a deck around that. Also, I guess maybe we can get into that later. We'll discuss it later. But I also like the politics of this deck. We'll discuss that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will. So then, obviously, I don't think we really need to talk about like the style of deck building of Spike. Just kill people. And although in a multiplayer format, I guess we should touch on this a little bit. It's actually really difficult to build Spike in a multiplayer format, which in a multiplayer formats, you need to be able to kill everyone really, really quickly. Like faster than Legacy quick. Faster than Vintage quick. Or you need to lock them all out of the game.
Or you just make yourself win the game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you could do that too. But I was gonna get to that in that basically for Spike, unless you're doing some kind of lock, you need to play combo.
Exactly. Which is fine. I mean, for some people.
Yeah, I don't really like it because, one, it kind of becomes unfun for the other people playing, which it's a multiplayer social format, so that's not very good. But also, like, I don't know, I mean, the idea of Commander, it kind of, like...
The social contract.
Well, not even that. Just, like, if I'm playing some combo and I'm like, alright, my combo's gonna happen, like, every game, like, I just play the same game every game.
Right? That's not fun. At least for me.
Palinchron, guys.
Palinchron is stupid, yeah. Okay, so Jameson's gonna be our combo player, alright.
Yeah, I feel like Jameson is. So our new rule is going to become kill Jameson first, which is good, because usually the rule is kill John first. So
see, but John's deck is almost a combo deck because the synergy is so good.
A lot of them are, yeah. Like, that's borderline combo.
The kill John rule should still be in effect.
Well, that's my favorite thing is synergy. Like, that's how I love decks. I just love decks where it's just like... So, here's the thing about how every card works with every other card. Doing something really awesome. Mm-hmm. That's how I build my decks.
And then the third thing to... Oh, flavor. Sorry, flavor. The third theme is flavor. You know, which John kind of touched on about the army thing. But, like, I remember seeing an article on Star City where the guy was talking about this deck he had built entirely based on flavor, which he hadn't done before. And he built Zergo Bellstriker, which is a pretty terrible commander. But, I mean, I guess if he's aggressive enough, you can suit him up.
I remember reading that article. Yeah, he used like all the Bell cards.
Yeah, and he put literally every Bell that was legal to put in his deck in there. And then like all sorts of other things.
That's like Chaz with Solkanar, the Swamp King.
Yeah, like there's
from...
Chaz Eldridge. He has a deck that it's Solkanar, and it has to all be cards from around the time that Solkanar, well, from like Chronicles, and around that time. Awesome. So it's like even his mana base is just like crappy like white bordered lands.
Oh man.
Although I shouldn't diss Ice Age lands too hard. Jameson might kill me.
Dude, I love me some Ice Age lands. Don't even. It's such good art.
I need to build a deck. I need to build a deck with snow covered lands where snow covered lands matter. That's like
it's expensive though.
Deck. Is there a snow creature?
Yeah. Yeah, there is.
I don't think
Yeah,
any
I
of them are
think so.
particularly
I
amazing.
think there's a blue one.
Perfect.
I want to build that one vampire chick from Cold Snap with the
Yeah,
really bad with the really bad hair.
the biting gale.
Yeah, no.
You
That's
said the
that's
fairy
from
chick?
Lorwyn. That's the fairy. That's the fairy from Lorwyn.
Oh yeah. You're right.
It's
She is
like
Lauren.
Garzul or something like that.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
remember
yeah.
her name. I don't even remember what she does, to be honest with you.
Just flavor
But
it.
anyways,
But yeah, she's kind of bad, but kind of cool. She has abilities. They do things. So, and then the 75% rule. The idea of building your deck to roughly 75% of the power of what you could build it to. Oh, and I just saw your message. I'll make you a mod later, Jameson, for next week.
Hey.
You can, like, building it to 75% still allows you to make it so that you can just go and win sometimes if the game drags on for too long. But at the same time, it allows for a lot more interactions with players. Usually allows for a lot more interactions with players, and that's a lot of, in my opinion, the point of Commander is cool and fun interactions.
exactly. And I mean, and I mean, everyone loves to have a good story, and sometimes sometimes the major story is the fact that so and so comboed out on turn 8. Maybe, but sometimes it's the back and forth. Like some of the best stories I have are games that were just between like 3 people and were just nail biting every turn. It was just like okay, and you were constantly playing around each other, and it was just super fun, and it was super intense. You all were just like, okay, did that? All right, I got to do this. This, no, this. Like it was just lots of fun. And so I mean, like I like that. And the 75% rule is something that I try to use. Like I'll usually make a deck list, and then I'll look at it and I'm like, how busted is this? Because the one thing, and I can't remember who it was. Somebody on Star City wrote, and for me, it rang very true in that the hard part isn't breaking a commander deck. The hard part is not breaking a commander deck, because you have access to so many cards. You can, I mean, you could make a deck that just has every ridiculous combo for Magic in it. But that's easy. Like that's an easy thing to do. It's hard. It's hard to make a deck, or more difficult to make a deck that does things.
Yeah, that kind of restrains itself. Like you still want to be
Right.
able to combo a win, but you don't like you want to be able to do it in an interesting way, and you want to have some cool stuff happen before just ending the game.
Right. I mean, like, and that's not fine. I mean, like, but again, a lot of this is so much based on the social construct and as far as your specific play group. Sometimes maybe you want to be super spiky and you guys want to combo out, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Sometimes,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know.
like Jameson.
Well, I know that the playground at the stadium, that's where whenever I go to play, it is normally there. Normally the people there just go to have a good time, and they're not
Yeah.
really combo out. Like there's a person there with the flag bearer deck because he loves flag bearers.
No, Kenny's flag bearer deck is awesome. Don't laugh at it, John. It's great.
It's actually really good and really cool. And you know what I mean? Then you have people like
Flag
Nick
bearer?
who
What
has
the
like
heck's a
take all your
flag
stuff
bearer?
that
A
deck.
flag bearer. Here, let me just do an advanced search for flag bearer, so I
It's
can
like a card
explain it
type?
to you. Yeah.
Or is it like
It's like a weird.
ability?
It's kind of like a weird tribal. So,
They're hilarious.
for example, there's like it's a creature type, and also there's other stuff that turns creatures into flag bearers. But like Coalition Honor Guard, it's a 2/4 for 3 and a white creature, human flag bearer. While choosing targets as part of casting a spell or activating an ability, your opponents must choose at least one flag bearer on the battlefield if able. So what a lot of the flag bearers do is they become like grounding totems to stuff. So it's basically just like focus on this guy while I crush your face.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
hilarious.
Oh my god, I had a Yu-Gi-Oh deck like that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I need to look at these cards now. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So he
So
plays
yeah,
like a lot of.
like that.
So he plays like the Coalition Honor Guard, like a lot of changelings and stuff like that.
Like, yeah.
And
Okay.
so
But, you
all
know,
of his dudes
that's
are
like
flag
that.
bearers, and then he has effects that make it so that flag bearers,
Have to be
Right.
card.
Do
Yeah.
X. Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
See, the
See,
deck is
I
also like a slight sliver.
Yeah,
something.
it is
Like,
currently. It's kind of like slivers with flag bearers in it, but he wants to
to make
change
it
it
all
to
flag
full
bearers.
blown flag
That'd be
bearers.
hilarious.
That'd be great. That's awesome.
Right. So yeah, I think we've probably talked enough about those different styles. And so right. So here's where I get to talk shit about John. I've been looking forward to this.
I had one job.
John had one job to do. Jameson didn't have this job because he doesn't actually own any commander decks currently. John and I were supposed to pick the deck that we think is either our favorite deck or the deck that we're just playing the most currently, and put that deck onto Tapped Out, make a list for it, put it on there. And then we would be able to, throw it up on the screen, and we'd talk about it and analyze it. John didn't do that. So he'll still be able to talk about his deck, but I unfortunately won't have a list to show you guys.
You will not be able to see it for a little bit. I will put it up as soon as possible.
We could probably just quickly, before we dive into things next week, we could throw it up there and revisit a couple points. But so I guess I'll do my deck first then, since that actually has a list I can show you.
Yes.
That one. Oh boy, the infinity screen.
Infinity screen.
Aha! Alright, so here is my go-to commander deck. It is 5-color Super Friends with Corona False God as the... Oh, zoomed in too much. There we go. Corona False God as the commander. Corona is 1 and then 1 of each color, 5/5 haste. By the way, doesn't show it on the card, but it's creature type Avatar. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps Corona False God and gains control of it. Whenever Corona attacks, creatures of the type of your choice get +3/+3 until the end of your turn. So, as you could probably imagine, I'm not a huge fan of giving people a hasty 5/5 that buffs all their dudes, so I don't cast Corona much. It's more so there for the colors. And also for the initial theme that the deck had. Originally, the deck was a bunch of Planeswalkers, which still a bunch of Planeswalkers. 28 of them, to be exact, in the current list of the deck. And then all of the gods except for Athreos, because in a deck where all of the creatures are indestructible, Athreos is really, really, really bad. But yeah, right. So which I've wound up cutting a lot of the gods at this point. So Corona is kind of there as leftover flavor in a way. But like, I don't want to play Progenitus because people already get afraid of Planeswalkers, and if I'm rocking Progenitus, then I'm gonna die really fast.
You could run Angry Baby.
You can Angry Baby.
But that kills. But that kills my Planeswalkers as an issue. Which, although it does go with the other major theme of the deck of shit tons of board wipes. We've got Damnation, Day of Judgment, Rout, Supreme Verdict, Wrath of God. Detective Sphere is kind of a board wipe. It's a bunch of tokens.
It can be. Not commander, it's like one thing.
And then Grave Betrayal is good with the board wipes. Whenever a creature you don't control dies, return it to the battlefield under your control with an additional +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So that actually works in a couple of ways with my deck. 1, I get a huge force whenever I wipe the board. And 2, they're all zombies, so I can finish the game by casting Corona and then attacking and naming zombie.
Exactly. And also, I mean, in a deck that doesn't run a lot of creatures, commanders
15 creatures
like to die. Things like to die a lot. Whether it's sack outlets for value, or people, like Alex said, board wiping, or people just deciding that creature needs to go away.
And then you've got 5 people working on making your creature that you worked so hard to get go away.
Exactly. Which I have a lot of experience with this commander deck. Anyway, yes.
And then
So,
I've also got Never Null's Disc, Cyclonic Rift.
which is definitely in my contention for best card in this format.
It's like
Oh, Cyclonic Rift is amazing. Reset everyone's boards except mine, kill someone.
Dude, I was playing one-on-one against a card deck with Teferi, and he kept playing all the 0-mana rocks and everything. And he just kept dumping his own hand on the board, and then he had a Reliquary Tower. But I tech edged his Reliquary Tower, and Cyclonic Rift him, and he got really bummed.
See, no, what you really do is, like, I Cyclonic Rift people, and then I remove the Divinity counter from Myojin of Night's Reach. And everyone except me discards their hand. Which, that's in the deck.
On the inside.
Also, Myojin of Cleansing Fire is another board wipe in here. Run 38 lands, because that's just what it feels like it needs. I've seen other Super Friends kind of run 39 or so. It is a control deck through and through. As you can see in the analysis of my mana base and the colors represented in my deck, it's basically Esper control. The outer stuff is the colors that are actually in the deck, and then the inner stuff is the lands. It's not quite perfect. I might need to tweak a couple lands, but basically Esper control.
Right.
And then, so, there's all sorts of combos in the deck, which basically the goal of the deck, the way I play it, is keep the board clear to protect my Planeswalkers, play Planeswalkers, eventually one will stick. That's the methodology. That is the theory behind the deck. That is entirely it.
Eventually one will survive long enough to give me enough value that I can do something else.
Yep. And so,
on occasion, sometimes I even get to ult one of them.
Yeah, which on occasion I get to ult all of them. Which that is of course coming from the best card in the deck, Doubling Season. It's if an effect would put one or more tokens on the battlefield under your control, it doubles it. If an effect would place one or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many counters on it instead, and that includes loyalty counters. Now, the like plussing and stuff, for example, that doesn't get doubled because that's just the cost of the ability. But for example, and John was talking about sometimes you just combo on turn 8. Well, how about combo on turn 4 but the control deck? Turn 1, land, Soul Ring. Turn 2, land, Perforos. Turn 3, Perforos, God of the Forge. The relevant part is his trigger. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Perforos deals 2 damage to each opponent. Turn 3, land, Doubling Season. Turn 4, a Johnny, Caller of the Pride, -8. Get something like 80, close to 80 cats, which then they all, Perforos deals 2 damage to each opponent for each cat that I get. Everyone's dead.
Yay, damage!
Yay! That did happen once. It was beautiful.
Really?
Yes. And then a lot of times when people see the deck, it's less of a question of why is this card in here and more of a question of why isn't this card in here. Which a lot of people seem to have very strong opinions about which Planeswalkers are good in Planeswalker decks. The biggest one is probably Dak Faden. People all the time ask me, why is Dak Faden not in this deck? And they're always shocked when I tell them, because he's terrible in this deck. Like
he really isn't what you need, like at all.
Here, I'll pull him up to talk about him.
Who you do need in that deck, Alex? Tybalt.
I do not need Tybalt.
Yes, you do need Tybalt.
I do not need Tybalt.
His hand is too important to him. Is the only thing. If sculpting his hand wasn't as important as it was, he could probably run Tybalt. But sculpting his hand is super important in his deck.
Yeah, and then in any commander deck, because everything's a one-of. And in this deck, literally everything's a one-of. I only run one of each.
If you want to run Tybalt, though, Jameson, you should build Alicia, who smiles at death for Tiny Leaders. Because he's really good in that deck. Because you don't care if you discard your creatures, because you're going to get them back when she attacks anyway.
That's
Fair
a good
enough.
point. But yeah, like literally the whole deck is singleton. Even my basics. I've got one forest, one plains, one island, one swamp. No mountain. Basically,
So you know what he doesn't like? Blood
Wave of
Moon.
Vitriol.
Or Wave of Vitriol. Either one of those cards makes him a really
Which,
sad boy.
the only reason I'm running these basics is so that I don't just lose to Blood Moon. Which
I'm surprised there's people who play Blood Moon.
sometimes you do, like mono red decks and stuff. You'll see them playing Blood Moon and Commander.
Okay.
But yeah, so deck
because in Commander, 3 people run multicolored decks, and so you can just punish their greedy mana bases.
Yeah.
By just running a Blood Moon, and then you're just like, this is what happens.
So basically, I've got the one of each basic, and yeah, back to basics is banned. Thank God, isn't it? Right?
It is,
right
because
it is good.
It would without
I think
doubt be the best. It would warp the format.
Yeah. Okay, so so basically I've got those basic lands and where's artifacts? I have a chromatic lantern. That's how I combat Blood Moon. But but yeah, so Dak Faden, he costs 1, a blue, and a red. He enters with 3, or in the case, like even if I have doubling season out, he's not good because his emblem is bad for me. Because if I'm targeting something, I'm killing it. So like, I'm gonna gain control of it, woohoo, and then it dies.
Right.
And it's only spells. If it was spells or abilities, then hell yeah, he'd run it. There's all sorts of things in here that would like just target stuff. Like
like you could like a Johnny put a 1/1 counter on your dude. Oh, it's mine.
Yeah, or a Johnny Steadfast, +1 until end of turn, up to 1 target creature gets +1/+1 first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. I'll take that.
Right.
So stuff like that. But it's not abilities. And then the +1 target player draws 2 cards and discards 2 cards. That's probably the strongest ability for me in the deck in the card. Like there's situations where just advancing cards is good, but as John mentioned, like I really don't like discarding cards much, which is weird considering Lily Out of the Veil sometimes does super amounts of work in the deck. But that's more so for the sacrifice effect and her -6.
Right.
But then gain control of target artifact. It depends on the game. There could be games where this is like just amazing, but then there's other games where it'll do literally nothing. And unless I'm going against an artifact deck, which guess what? They're probably going to have backups to whatever it is I'm doing. They're probably going to be able to take it back or just destroy it or something. And then, or I'm just like, woohoo! I stole your soul ring. Like it's good, but it's not amazing.
The best, yeah.
Right. It's like when it's good, it's really good, but when it's bad, it's
really bad.
It just depends. Okay, if there's someone playing Karn, you might as well play a Dak Faden. But if there's no one playing Karn,
yeah, and that's another thing about Commander.
That would be one of those cards. Like if you're building a Super Friends deck, I would say at that point that you could use by judging how your play group is.
Yeah,
like,
that's another thing about Commander is how.
If your play group has a lot of artifacts, a lot of people run really strong artifacts in their deck. You probably want to run a Dak Faden in there, just to take so-and-so's ensnaring bridge or whatever, like that kind of thing for sure. But like if you don't have a at least for us, our play group, we have a couple people that run artifact decks, but for the most part, most people's artifacts are utility things like
it's like 2
Elixir
people
or
right,
yeah,
or whatever.
The most artifact you see are like you said, Soul Ring or an Elixir or like a Chromatic Lantern, which I guess it'd be solid. I guess on a denial basis maybe. But overall, it's not worth the slot.
I mean, in a way, though. I mean, I guess if I steal someone's chromatic lantern, it's like running
it's really
2 chromatic lanterns. It's like running 2 chromatic lanterns in my deck because Dak Faden costs 3 mana as well. So
yeah.
But yeah, and then of course I've got the Super Friends Planeswalkers. I've got Johnny, Mentor of Heroes. He pluses to dig for Planeswalkers. I've got basically. The way that the deck wins is it goes everywhere very, very slowly. Eventually, I wipe the board enough times and enough of my Planeswalkers stick that I kind of have a lockdown on the board with just abilities. And so then I'll wind up making a bunch of dudes with Elspeth or whatever, and then get her emblem, and then cast Corona and attack with like 27 or 28 flying soldiers at people and stuff like that.
Right.
Why not?
And then, like Kiora, if I get Krakens going, is really, really good. Liliana of the Dark Realms, by the way, is surprisingly amazing considering it's 5-color and not mono black. Because she fixes my mana by searching for Shocklands. She, if someone plays Urborg, she's really amazing because then I can just -3 and kill anything. And then the emblem is.
In your deck, Alex?
I do
No,
not,
he
but
does
I've been thinking about it.
Okay.
I don't know. I might replace like Graven Cairns or something with Urborg.
Okay, I just wasn't sure how invested in black you were.
Right, it's one of the major colors of the deck.
Okay, I can see it then.
And then the emblem, a lot of people are like terrified of the emblem when I play her, but like it doesn't actually do much. Like, what am I gonna do with 4 black in a 5-color deck?
Right. I mean, like he doesn't have like a whole bunch of like X cost spells. Like he doesn't have any like big X bombs that he
Yeah.
can
Like Rev
drop.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's not really.
Then Liliana Vess is amazing because tutors, and also it can be a win con if I get to the -8. But I usually just tutor with her.
Right.
Usually
Right.
for
And-
doubling
and I mean,
season.
and being able to tutor up the planeswalker you need
Yeah.
is really strong.
Yeah.
Considering planeswalkers themselves offer so much utility,
Yeah.
it's solid.
I have gotten Teferi's emblem, the one where I can activate loyalty abilities of planeswalkers I control on any player's turn at instant speed.
Ew.
I have gotten that to happen once. I mean, I had won the game already. It was win more at that point because I had basically already won, but it was so awesome.
But you had to do
Right.
it.
Yep.
It's not a
Yeah,
and then
you do it.
Venser
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Sojourner.
If you have the chance, you do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Venser the Sojourner is another sleeper, amazing card in the deck.
Fences is really good. I love
Because-
Fences.
And you might think it's because of his emblem or his minus, where like the -1 creatures are unblockable this turn. -8 get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, exile target permanent. I mean, those are nice,
Not.
but his
It's
plus
not.
ability is like the best ability in the deck, I swear. Because what I
Because he
can do with
cast
him,
Lily, tutor with Lily, blink Lily, and then she comes back in with full loyalty again.
or I can like cast Elspeth, Sun's Champion, -3, wipe the board, blink Elspeth, still got an Elspeth with 4 loyalty counters. I can gain control of creatures for forever with Nicol Bolas. I can play Soren Markov, set someone's life total to 10, blink him back to 4 loyalty counters.
Alex,
It's
did your deck play
really
Narset?
stupid. Yes,
Okay.
I do have
So
Narset.
awesome.
Although the thing about Narset though is I've plussed her like maybe 15 times. I have drawn a card with her once.
Really? That seems highly unlikely.
It's always been lands or one of my 15 creatures.
That seems highly unlikely. That's
She
insane.
survived
I know.
like a creepy amount of time though. Like she
Yeah.
never just like straight up dies though. Like,
No one
she
really
always
wants to
makes
kill
it-
her because it's just saying that it's just like, well, you're either gonna rebound a thing or whiff.
Which is really
apparently
good
14
for him,
out of
though, with his
15
board
times.
wipes. It's
Rebound
good,
is
though, with his
really good
wipes,
with board
though,
wipes.
because he will do it and then he'll like Wrath of God and then blink
Yeah.
it. Well, no one's gonna play anything that next round either because there's a Wrath coming.
Right.
So he basically gets to 2-for-1 on gets to X.
I
and then-
buy 2 turns with board wipes,
Right.
which is solid.
which is
I should
buying
probably
turns
top
is
up on my
actually
deck,
really
Alex.
good. Yes, you're right. I know we started a little bit later, so I was comfortable with talking a
Okay.
little bit longer about
All
mine.
right. Okay.
But,
well, my commander, the one that I
Yeah.
chose, was my baby, my first commander deck, and the one that's probably spent the most on, probably has the most money in it, maybe, is
Maybe.
Animar, Soul of Elements. For those of you that don't know, Animar costs blue, red, green. He's a 1/1. He has protection from white and from black. And whenever I cast a creature spell, I put a 1/1 counter on him. And then creature spells I control cost 1 less for each 1/1
You okay?
counter. Yeah.
Were you just letting the cats
on
out?
him. Kind of, yes. Sorry. For each 1/1 counter on him, all my creatures cost 1 colorless less. Which is really good because the average mana cost of this deck, I believe, is 6.
I was gonna get 7.
No, 6, 5, and 6 are the sweet spots for this deck.
To put that in perspective, my deck is slow. My average converted mana cost is 4.3 something.
And this deck is not slow.
It's very fast.
Animar is just really good.
Just a house.
The prop white and prop black is most of it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
All right. The important thing to notice, and when I put this list up, you'll see is that there are no instants and no sorceries in this deck. The entire deck is permanents.
Which
yeah. So all my interaction in this deck comes entirely, and I repeat entirely, off of Prophet of Crufix. That is the only way I have any interaction with this deck, aside from abilities.
Who needs interaction? Just
Huh?
cast sweet dudes. You don't need interaction.
Right?
Just cast sweet dudes. Yeah.
That's really how this deck works.
Yeah,
This
Prophet
deck
of
can cast
Crufix.
better dudes than you, faster than you. I mean, looking through, I got some cards in here that are pretty nifty. Like, probably one of my favorite ones is my my Mole Drifter. I love it because it's foil. My foil Mole Drifter makes me happy on the inside. As I said, Prophet of Crufix was probably recently the best card ever printed for this deck. I really can't, like, it's just really good.
It's probably the best card printed recently for Commander.
Yeah,
just as a whole.
Prophet is definitely.
Wasn't there a
Prophet has multiple words with different definitions with the same pronunciation, and that is relevant with that card in this format.
wasn't there a didn't the blue-green Liege untap lands too?
Yeah, but it wouldn't let you flash in stuff.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The blue-green Leaf, which is also in here. He goes no. What he does, he lets you untap your blue and green creatures during.
It's a Mercfiend Liege, right?
Okay.
Yes. So Prophet of Crufix might be the best creature in this deck. I say that trepidatiously because
there's a lot of bullshit
Kiki
creatures in that deck.
Kiki Jiki probably does more for this deck than I can think any other card. Like, so many times, if I've been in a situation where I'm like, I don't think I can win, I draw Kiki Jiki and I'm like, I don't know if that helps. Wait, oh my gosh, I can do this. And then problem solved. And that's super good.
He'd be okay too if he just didn't have haste. He'd be like fair.
Yeah, but who wants fair cards?
I guess not Jameson.
I never want fair cards. I want to break the game.
Both of you Yu-Gi-Oh players are like, we don't want fair cards. We want to do stupid shit.
Okay, I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh since I was like 14.
But you played a lot of it.
I did. You're not wrong. I played a lot of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. And then I got into the good game.
Me too.
Yeah, and actually, PVJ makes a good point about Cyclonic Rift, Private Jet. About Cyclonic Rift being possibly the best card printed for Commander in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, definitely, like, for cards, as far as cards that are just, like, as a general rule in Commander. I don't mean like corner cases, like general rule.
Yeah,
right.
Recently, in recent years, they printed a lot.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
I think we're losing John.
And Cyclonic Rift.
Oh, he's coming back.
Hold like the top spots for me.
Yeah.
Huh?
All right, you're back now.
No.
You were gone for a little bit.
Oh. Prophet of Crufix and Cyclonic Rift hold the top spots for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But you can't run Cyclonic Rift in your deck because you set that permanent only rule.
It didn't. In the initial iteration of this deck, I actually did run instants and sorceries, and that just kind of I just slowly ended up taking them out because, I mean, you know, the more creatures,
more dudes.
more dudes, and they're cheaper. And Animar doesn't make instants and sorceries cheaper. It only makes dudes. Another
There's dudes that
card
make
deck,
your instant sorceries cheaper, but
there are, but I mean,
yeah.
another card in this deck that I was super happy for was Possibility Storm. And this deck and this card does a couple things for my deck. The first one being that it lets me dig.
John,
Yes.
just in case people aren't entirely familiar with it, because outside of Commander, it's a pretty much like, what the fuck is that card?
Right.
And there's a lot of text that's up on the screen right now. So why don't you just read it to people? Do you have it in front of you?
Yes. Whenever a player casts a spell from his or her hand, that player exiles it. Then exiles cards from the tops of his or her library till he or she exiles a card that shares a card type with it. That player may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then he or she puts all cards exiled with Possibility Storm on the bottom of his or her library in a random order. So the short version of what that means is, for example, if you cast Ponder, Ponder would not resolve. Ponder would be cast, it would then be exiled off the stack. You would then exile cards from the top of your library until you revealed another sorcery, say Wrath of God.
Which, for the record,
say Enter the Infinite.
For the record, I absolutely love it when he casts Normally, my deck hates it because if I hit a Planeswalker that I already have in play, for example, if I have a Jace out and I hit another Jace, I'm super sad. But I love it when Possibility Storm's out and I have Ponder in my hand because every other sorcery in the deck is a board wipe.
Yeah,
so I don't need to try to ponder to draw the board wipe. I just go straight to it.
So it's super fun because you just paid 1 blue to Wrath of God.
Yes.
That's super fun.
The Possibility Storm for me is just one of my favorite cards of all time.
Yeah,
there was a very bad Modern deck that it played with. It was probably you either cast a Memnite and it turned into an Emrakul, or you polymorphed a thing and it turned into an Emrakul, and it was just a blast.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. Did you ever see when Possibility Storm was still standard for a brief period of time? And I don't remember if it was Innistrad Ravnica or if it was Ravnica Theros Black.
It was Ravnica Theros.
Yeah, the turn 1 win combo that you could in theory do if you had perfect RNG in standard.
I don't remember it being turn 1.
It might have been turn 2, but it was 1 or 2.
Huh.
It was 2. You had to play a Mana Dork turn 1, and then you could go into it turn 2. But yeah, it involved involved like Possibility Storming into like 3 different urban evolutions, and then playing like Nykthos 4 times, and then really stupid.
That's the best.
Okay, so how Memnite into Emrakul works is you have a Possibility Storm, and the only 2 creatures in your deck are one Knight and 1 Emrakul. So you cast the Memnite, it gets exiled, and the only creature you can hit is Emrakul. So I
assume you try to like somehow tutor up the Memnite.
Right, you have Tolaria West in the deck. It's like a blue-red. Yeah, it's a blue.
Yeah, you transmute for it and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best. But another thing, and probably the most important thing that it does for this deck, is that it stops counter decks.
Yeah.
Sometimes, more or less.
Sometimes.
Because control decks are super important for as far as sculpting your hand, and your hand is super important to you. And making it so that counterspell in your hand may or may not be a counterspell seriously affects how you can play.
Mm-hmm.
Because it may be a counterspell, but it may end up becoming a brainstorm, which normally may not be the worst thing, but if you need to counter my, say, I don't know, vigor off the top of my head, you might not be able to do that.
It would be a rather unfortunate experience.
Yes. This deck also does a lot of things as far as like enter the battlefield abilities and triggers. So another real MVP for this deck is Deadeye Navigator, which for those of you that don't know, Deadeye Navigator costs 4 and 2 blue, and it's a 5/5. and it has Soul Bond. And the Soul Bond trigger is that when it's paired with another creature, each of those creatures has pay 1 in the blue, exile that creature, and then return to the battlefield under your control. So basically, I can blink things that it's paired to for 1 in the blue. Like, say, Kiki Jiki.
And then, I mean, like, Zealous Conscripts is super good in the deck, too.
And
With
also,
Kiki
Zealous
Jiki.
Conscript is super good in that with it because
It's a
it lets
combo.
me. It is. Actually, though, hold on. I actually think I might have taken the Gilded Lotus out of this deck, though.
I didn't know
Well,
it was in the deck.
Isn't
Yeah, initially, so initially I had Deceiver, Exarch, Gilded Lotus, and Kiki Jiki in here. But then I realized that actually with Zealous Conscripts, and then I realized that made it too easy.
Yeah.
Like, that made it almost too easy.
75%
So-
rule.
Right. So I cut back on that. Yeah, I actually took the Gilded Lotus out of
So
here.
for those of you that don't understand why that's so funny, Deceiver Exarch, it's a 1/4 with flash for 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, choose one. Untap target permanent you control, or tap target permanent an opponent controls. So you make...
So I soul bonded the Deceiver Exarch
Mhm.
to Deadeye Navigator. I would pay 1 in the blue, blink the Deceiver Exarch, come back into play, I would untap Gilded Lotus, tap Gilded Lotus to make
So he
3
gets
blue.
infinite blue mana.
And each time I would get 1 bonus. And then once I made an arbitrary large amount of blue mana, I could then use that blue mana to
pay for the
almost
blinking?
equally arbitrarily large amount of any other mana, and then just cast everything.
Yeah.
Or like with Nin the Pain Artist, I could just kill you because I would nin your creature for 400,000, and then you have to draw that many cards.
Right.
Yeah.
And as, so they do draw a lot of hate from casual players, and I've had that happen many a time, especially with you playing jank combo decks, Cyclonic Rift, Prophet of Krufix, and Deadeye Navigator. They do draw a lot of hate, but it doesn't really matter if they can't do anything about it.
And that's Jameson being the spike player. But no, I mean, at some point, Commander games do have to end. I mean, like, not everyone wants to play a 6-hour Commander game.
What if
everyone's just 6 people just playing hugs? Everyone just hugs each other.
Multiple hug stacks make for really fun times. In the same pod, I mean. This was back when I was still playing my Experiment Crouch deck. I had a turn 2 Sphinx Ambassador. Which, if you don't know what it does, basically, it's a 5/5 flyer that when it deals combat damage to a player, you go through their deck, you pick a card. Well, you'd probably pick a creature card, because if you search for a creature card that isn't the named card, and the player names a card after you pick a card. If you search for a creature card that isn't the named card, you may put it onto the battlefield under your control. So, turn 2 Sphinx Ambassador, turn 3, attack. They didn't name Blightsteel Colossus, so I got a Blightsteel Colossus on turn 3. And then I just started deleting people.
Well,
As the rest of the table was just like, why did you not name Blightsteel Colossus?
They don't think about it. Oh gosh.
However, though, and we mentioned earlier about cool interactions that decks allow you to do. And so probably the one that I like the most in this deck, it's super complicated and super janky, but if I pull it off, it's super cool. And it requires 5 cards, actually. I can find them. No, it only requires 4 cards. It requires me to have a Murkfiend Liege in play, requires me to have Kiki Jiki in play, and requires me to have Crystal Shard in play. So, what I do is I cast Progenitor Mimic. But I cast Progenitor Mimic as a copy of nothing, because it's a May. So it comes into play as nothing. Now, normally that would mean it dies because it's a 0/0. However, because it's blue and green, Murkfiend Liege gives it +2/+2, so it does not die. So it is just a 2/2 shapeshifter in play. I then tap Kiki Jiki to make a copy of Progenitor Mimic and have that copy come in also as a copy of Progenitor Mimic. Then I use Crystal Shard. I pay a blue and tap it, return Crystal Shard to my hand unless I pay one. Don't pay one. And then I cast Progenitor Mimic and have it come into play as a copy of my clone of Progenitor Mimic.
You just love KG.
So what this means is that every turn I get a Progenitor Mimic token that I can then use to copy something else in play.
So to then make more copies of every turn.
So then I get a free clone every turn.
There's more
It's the best feeling. Yes. And it's the best feeling. Super janky, but when I pull it off, I'm just like, yo, your stuff is mine.
Just satisfaction.
Right?
And then I play Wrath of God and he gets sad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I figured out. But speaking on the 75% rule that we touched on earlier. This deck is probably.
By the way, I think this will probably be the last thing we really talk about.
This deck, I purposefully have, as you heard me say earlier about Deceiver Exarch before and Guild of Lotus. Power management has been a big thing with this deck. Because ideally, people all the time ask me, why don't I run Eldrazi? Because Animar basically makes them free. And I only have one Eldrazi in here, and that's Artisan Kozilek, which when it comes into play, lets me return a creature from my graveyard to play. Which, I mean, it's so I can get back the creatures in this deck. Right. Exactly. Actually, it only works when I cast it, so I can't Kiki Jiki it, which makes me kind of sad, but I also get it.
Because God, that'd be so. All the Eldrazi are only cast, so.
But it's the reason that I don't, because I mean I could run them, but I mean it'd be. I feel like I'd be making it too strong. It's also why I don't run Palancron in here as well, because
it's basically 2 mana, untap 7 lands, get a 7/7 flyer.
Yeah, it's basically me that way.
And then just quick, I want you to talk about this Teferi Possibility Storm.
Teferi Possibility Storm.
John?
Yes. I took Teferi out of my deck because when I have Teferi, Mage of Zhalfir in play, in Possibility Storm, no one else gets to do anything. And the reasoning for this is, it's a rules thing, but Teferi says you can only cast spells at sorcery. Your opponents can only cast spells at sorcery speeds. Now, what that ultimately translates to is that you can only cast spells if the stack is empty. Well, when you cast Possibility Storm and your spell is exiled, the stack isn't technically empty because the Possibility Storm trigger is still on the stack, which means that you cast your spell, Possibility Storm triggers, you hit your next spell, and Teferi says no. So nothing happens.
So that's why he cut Teferi from the deck. Because 75%. And what's the thing is that whoever has Possibility Storm Teferi, well, whoever controls the Teferi, I guess it could be anyone's Possibility Storm. Whoever controls Teferi still can play spells because it's only each opponent can play spells only anytime he or she can play a sorcery. So at that point, they just need to not accidentally kill their Teferi, and then they win.
So I mean, it's super good. And I try not to keep. And now, I mean, sometimes stuff like that will happen. The best example is I have a green deck where the whole point is to turn your lands into creatures. It's really fun. However, one time I did that, and I can't remember the name of it, but it turned everybody's lands into 2/2 creatures, which is cool. However, my friend, Steven, played a card called Linvala, Keeper of Silence. For those of you that don't know, Linvala says activated abilities of your opponent's creatures can't be activated. However, unlike most things that stop abilities, hers does not say no mana abilities. Since your lands are now creatures, tapping for land is an ability. So everyone else was like, oh. And I was like, no, guys. No, you don't understand. You don't understand.
You can't produce
done.
mana anymore.
we can't do anything.
Except attack with our creatures.
That's all we have. We just have to. Don't
And
even
they're only
conserve your
2/2s.
lands anymore, hand. Go
And
ham.
you know what?
Just swing out at him every turn, or it's over.
You know what blocks and kills a 2/2? Linvala, Keeper of Silence. But yeah, so I think that'll about wrap us up for this week's episode. We went a little bit longer, but that's because of the technical difficulties we were having at the beginning. I just considered it starting later. So next week, just so people know what it is we'll be talking about next week, we're going to do an analysis and review of Modern Masters and what we think its impact will have on Commander. Obviously, there's no new cards in there, but a lot of things become way more available, and that could definitely shape up some things. And then other people, like... I
want my Splinter Twin.
So John wants a Splinter Twin.
I have a Splinter Twin. Just one.
But yeah, so there's things that are going to become more available, which could lead to seeing more play in Commander. Also, who knows? Maybe there's people out there that have weird themes in their deck, like they have to have the newest borders.
Exactly. Or, I mean, maybe some of the cards you just want to get a foil of, and finding, I know, another set foil of some of the cards are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, even the ones that aren't super, super rare are, like, super, super good. Just set foils can be expensive if they're from an older set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, sets like Shadowmoor and Eventide, that had lower print runs, their foils can tend to be a bit more, because it's just harder to find them.
Like Glenelindra Archmage sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brings
a bright hearth. Right. So yeah. We'll be talking about Modern Masters a lot next week, and also we're going to attempt to do a live deck build. So we're going to probably, what we'll wind up doing, I would imagine, is we're going to randomly select a legendary creature. I believe there's John. What website was it that has the random legendary
on
thing?
magiccards.info, which also, by the way, is a really good site for people that want to, especially if you're looking for like a commander idea and you want to do something a little bit weird. The filters on there are really good. They also have a lot of like the rules text as far as concerning a card specifically. Not all of it, but a good portion of it next to the card when you pull it up as well. So it's also good for like looking up how cards interact. And the filters on them are super good. I mean, you can pretty much narrow down finding, like, if you're thinking of a card, if you have a general idea about it, you can pretty much find it on there using their filters. It's a really solid website. I would definitely recommend it to anybody, to everybody, for sure. But they have a button on there that says random, and when you press it, it just pulls up a random card.
So we're just gonna random until we hit a legendary creature.
Yep.
And then like for example, I just passed it, but I when in my just sample thing I hit that's really cool looking glory. I just hit the God, I don't even remember what it was now. But yeah, like so it doesn't work that way. If I go back, it goes back to the home page.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, so we'll just go until we hit a legendary creature next week, and then we'll build a deck to that. If we hit Brothers Yamazaki, well, that's going to be awkward. We'll probably do a flavor one.
No, we can do a Brothers Yamazaki deck.
Combo.
Well, I mean,
combo. We'll have Kiki Jiki, and we'll have like all sorts of red copy effects. So then that way we've got two. Oh, but we'll need Mirror Gallery.
Yes.
See, we did it.
Hey, but maybe we'll hit something like Manishi, the Fever Dream.
Right.
Which, I mean,
Hey, Mirror Gallery.
That card's good. So yeah, I mean, we'll probably hit one of those Kamigawa legends. We're just like...
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope he eats some Mario.
Uncommon legendary creature. Oh, yeah. But yeah, so that is us for this week's episode of Card Tricks and Cantrips. So
hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. I will be editing this and putting it onto YouTube. I don't know how long that will actually take, so probably within the next day or two, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think YouTube has like a slight delay when you upload something. I think
Yeah,
there's
you
like a
can.
small time lag between like when you
Yeah.
post it and when they like actually
Yeah.
put it up.
Yeah, I don't think it
I'm
would
not
be
sure how
ready
long it
tonight.
is.
I'll probably be posting it tomorrow. So,
Okay.
yeah. Also SoundCloud. I will be trying to get the audio from this, editing it, and then putting it on the SoundCloud.
All right.
But yeah, so have a good night, everyone.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Indeed.
Bye. Do jazz hands, John.
Bye. Bye. Jazz hands.